I'm not making any money. This is for educational purposes only. Fair use. Fair use. Brakatah Yahweh. Brakatah Yahweh Shai. Want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahachodash. I'd like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well, to the elder apostles, the bishops of Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, the elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom, to sisters Yochwatim who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Aram Yahawada with the lesson. Yeah, hey, the Lord is constantly moving and making things happen, right? As we can see, we're in this final hour, which is closely about to be the hour of temptation, and things are happening, right?
Will we see a major grid collapse across a huge portion of the United States? All signs seem to be pointing to yes. A destructive, potentially catastrophic ice storm is forecast to impact the South this weekend. Widespread ice will cripple travel, cause major power outages, and down to trees, power lines, everything. This is a rare, high-impact event, as it's being called. Potentially the worst in decades since what we saw in Texas back in 2021. Just take a look at the map here and you get a sense of what we're seeing. Where that orange is likely power outages, highly likely at this point, with all of that ice that's going to descend upon that region. The National Weather Service says great swaths of heavy snow, sleet, treacherous freezing rain could begin on Friday across parts of the nation's midsection. Here is their latest message. They've now upgraded their forecast. Confidence is high that a significant storm will occur, but not on specific details of the storm track, timing, and precipitation amounts. But one thing is clear, according to Matt Randolph, that this is going to be devastating from an ice perspective. Watch Matt Randolph.
I've been waiting to talk about the storm that's coming this weekend because I didn't want to freak people out. And a lot of these forecasts never pan out, but this one is panning out, it looks like. Yeah, everyone's in agreement now that the crazy forecast is actually happening. This is going to be one of those storms you probably remember for much of your life. Basically, more than the eastern half of the United States is going to be below freezing. Most of that below zero. They're calling for, foot and a half of snow all through here, all the way to the mid-Atlantic, and 3 inches of ice in this pink band right here. 3 inches of ice is unbelievably catastrophic. That is worse than what Texas experienced in 2021. There's going to be loss of life. Anywhere there's 3 inches of ice, there's no power. There's not going to be a power line that's not on the ground when there's 3 inches of ice. And emergency services aren't going to be able to reach you because there's 3 inches of ice.
And then lingering. So what will happen is that this is going to linger then for days. So these emergency service crews will not be able to get there. But the real heart of it is the grid. Colonel Rob Maness has been kind of preaching from the rooftops about this for years, and really as an energy expert. And we wanted to bring the Colonel on to talk about this. Colonel, maybe you can give our audience a little backstory about how you've been warning about this for years from an energy perspective. And then I want to talk about how prepared we actually are.
Thanks for having me on, Clayton. Look, I've been warning about this, especially in regards to Texas, since I was a wing commander at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the winter of 2011, we had a devastating storm like what you're about to see here. And Texas was not able to generate enough natural gas for heat in its state, so they cut the pipeline off to states like New Mexico, which had a direct impact not only on the national security efforts that I was working on, but the 23,000 people that lived and worked on Kirtland Air Force Base, every major city in New Mexico. And I haven't seen anything that attempts to rectify that situation. So we have a natural gas capacity and delivery challenge that still exists in some form. I'm not sure exactly how bad it is now. I'm sure we've been working on it, but it still exists from the reporting that I've seen and who I've been listening to. And then there's electrical power generation. You know, folks, we have spent the last decade or more slowly destroying two things about our electrical power grid. It's called reliability and capacity, the ability to deliver the power to your home or whatever facility you're looking at. So you have to have a reliable capability to generate power, and by adding things like wind in too large a numbers, adding solar before it's technically capable of reaching a reliable state to help power the grid needs that we have today, and then decreasing reliability on nuclear power plants, and also increasing our reliance on natural gas power generation, which hurts the natural gas delivery that's going to homes to run heaters in the same situation. So we have all of these situations that we have slowly destroyed this reliability and capacity issue with, and then layer that on the fact that every control over the grid system nationwide is digital. And there's a cybersecurity vulnerability to that. All you have to do is look back a few weeks at the attack on Venezuela and the president of the United States informing everybody, well, we shut all the power off. And these weapon systems and the communication systems the government relied on can't operate without that power. So there's a vulnerability in what's called the SCADA system, which is the digital controls for all of the electrical grids, no matter what utility company or what government is operating it. All of those things exist, and that's what I'm concerned about. You know, when we look at a state the size of Texas, we don't have enough battery storage capability yet for the solar parts of the power system in order to be able to make up for that. I think it's only about 14 gigawatts, and in a severely cold situation like this over a number of days, and it will take at least 3 days, probably closer to 4 to 7 days for the ice parts of this forecast to clear out. I went through an ice storm when I was a young man in West Tennessee with my grandparents that had 3 inches of ice, and it took over a month for them to get electrical power out. Thankfully, they had natural gas for their heating system when we didn't freeze to death, but not everybody's in that situation. So I'm very concerned that Texas's grid will first become overwhelmed, and they won't be able to do those things that are necessary to do to get heat to folks. And I think the cause for concern about potential deaths.
Winter is about to take a dangerous turn. After a major winter storm slammed more than half of the United States, the pattern is now shifting into an even colder and more volatile phase, as 2 Arctic blasts and additional snow are expected this week. It all begins today as bone-chilling cold surges south, driving temperatures well below normal and creating dangerous wind chills across large portions of the country. Snow and ice on the ground will struggle to melt, keeping travel hazardous and impacts locked in place. Widespread school closures and prolonged power outages are expected to continue in the hardest hit areas. After that, a more powerful Arctic blast will arrive later this week. This will reinforce the brutal cold and bring another round of life-threatening temperatures, especially in areas still dealing with prolonged power outages from the previous storm. This surge of cold air will also help generate additional snow, potentially reaching as far south as the Gulf Coast. So in today's forecast, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know about this major weather pattern change that is about to hit the United States. And we just got done with one of the most crippling ice storms we have ever seen in areas like Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas, and Louisiana, where nearly 750,000 people are still without power this morning. These are some of the sites that we saw around Nashville, with a lot of trees and even tree limbs that have landed on people's homes and have landed on roads and power lines. And this has unfortunately caused a lot of damage across Tennessee. And a lot of people this morning are waking up to temperatures outside in the teens and 20s. 20s, and even in their own homes being in the 30s and 40s. So it is extremely dangerous. We really need power restored as soon as possible, and all the frontline workers are doing their best to get power back on in these areas. And unfortunately, this cold air is only going to get worse this week. We right now have a very intense Arctic air mass that is sitting across the central and southern plains back in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, and it is still surging towards the southeast right now, while a warm pocket of air continues to surge across Florida. And really what's unfortunate as of last night is that many areas like Huntsville and Atlanta, Georgia had a bunch of accidents because we had a flash freeze, which basically means any liquid water that was still on the roadway froze back into ice. And a lot of people were caught off guard by this. We warned you on our forecast and even our live streams about this exact same thing. And so there have been some problems in those areas from that. But unfortunately, over the next few days, this Arctic air mass is going to reload across areas in Canada. So this is what's going to look like by Tuesday. We are going to have a very intense area of cold air centered over the Great Lakes. This is going to spin around an upper level low pressure system. And eventually, as we go into Wednesday and Thursday, even though things are going to still be below average across the southern plains and the southeast, we are going to get yet again another shot of Arctic air here across much of the United States. And that's really going to be felt as we go into late Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And notice how far south that Arctic air mass is going to get. It's going to get as far south as Florida and right along the Gulf Coast. And this might set up some rare snow chances for a lot of other people. So over the next several days, our temperatures are going to remain very below average. This is what we're expecting over the next couple of days. Temperatures will still be around 20 to 30 degrees below normal, anywhere from Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, Texas, back over into the Northeast. As we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, that cold air is just going to continue to sit all across anywhere east of the Rockies, really. If you're back over in the Ohio Valley, we'll have temperatures as low as negative 10 degrees by late Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. Thursday and Friday is when that Arctic air reloads, and it's going to drop all the way down towards the Gulf Coast, and this could shatter records back over here in the Mid-Atlantic and even back into the Ohio Valley. Areas like Maryland, Pennsylvania could be as much as 50 degrees below average. It is going to get downright crazy in terms of the temperatures, and while that is happening, we'll have a surge of Arctic air going down towards the Gulf Coast, with most areas down towards Florida and even near Mobile as much as 30 degrees below normal for this time of the year. So this winter is continuing to get worse here in the United States. It's not necessarily getting better, and it's even worse that we have so many power outages for those that don't even have a proper shelter or heating right now. Now it's going to be...
Yeah, so this is Psalms 147, verse 16. He giveth snow like wool. He scattereth the hoarfrost like ashes. Right? You see as it's coming like a blanket of snow coming all the way down through Canada, through the north part of America, which normally gets snow. But then when you're getting crazy amounts of snow in places where you normally don't get it, like, you know, Texas, Atlanta, these different places, Tennessee, these places don't normally see snow, especially in that type of level, you know, or even Florida. Like, you know what I mean? Florida's not known for getting that cold, you know. Florida's like a sunshine state, right? You know, to get that cold, that's crazy. So the Lord's just sending it all across, you know, and just, you know, blanketing it, so to speak. That's the hoarfrost, like ashes, yeah, covering it. It says, which is, you know, Yahweh Bashem Awashai, and he casteth forth his ice, right? They were talking about it was rain, but then it got cold in Atlanta, and the ice on the road basically made that black ice. So people were sliding around, crashing, especially in Atlanta. They're not used to that, you know. They're not used to driving on ice. That would have been, different, Chicago, New York, Pennsylvania, some place where, they're used to snow. They're not going to be crashing around like that. But a place where they're highly unfamiliar with that type of thing, that happens. Yeah, so he casteth forth his ice like morsels, who can stand before his cold. Man, who could stand before the Lord's cold? The Lord is actually sending this, right? Esau could be using whatever machine or whatever he's doing, you know, his, and he think he doing, but really, this is all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Shai, right? It's going to be a lot of loss of life. They're saying, right? So this is all. No one can perish unless the Lord sanction it, right? It says he sendeth out his word, right? See, and that's what it is. The Lord sent out the word to the angels, right? To the right-handed angels, right? The left-handed angels, right? And things are getting done. That's that spirit of the Lord, making sure that his word is true, right? And he sendeth out his word and melteth them. He causeth his wind to blow, right? You got these different hurricanes and things that's been happening, tornadoes. You got, this cold with the heat that's coming up. It's making it blow different, man. Like a different wind. The wind to blow and the water flow, right? And that's what it was pretty much doing in Atlanta. But then the cold made that water turn into ice on the road, and basically it's like black ice. You can't really see that it's ice. You see the tarmac, but you don't see that there's ice, so they're sliding around, crashing. Yeah, but we know what. These are the signs of the times, so that where the Lord said, measure the time diligently in itself. So this is part of measuring the time. It says he showeth his word unto Jacob, which is Yaqub in the Hebrew, and his statutes and his judgments unto Israel, which is actually Yasha Allah, right? And that's who the Lord's dealing with. He's dealing with his people, and he's dealing with the prophets, the elect. And these things are known, and by this we know what the times that we're dealing in, measuring the time diligently in itself, right? So this is Job 38:22. Has thou entered into the treasures of the snow, right? Showing you that the Lord has abundant amount of snow. You can't. The Lord can allow it to snow and snow and snow. 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever He want to do. He can make it snow where it normally don't snow, right? There's more than enough. It's a treasure of snow that the Lord has, right? The Lord is endless. There's nothing that Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai can't do. Or has thou seen the treasures of hell, right? And that's kind of like the when the snow or water, the rain turns into little balls of ice, right? Which could be dangerous too, right? Some of them come down big as softballs, coming down pretty fast from the sky, hit you in the head. It strikes you in the head. It's deadly in some cases, right? It says, which I have reserved. You see, and these are what the thing the Lord can do, man. He what reserved against the time of trouble. And where we're at right now, we're definitely in the time of trouble, against the day of battle. And that's where we're at right now. We're in the battle. We're in the time of battle, man. Because this devil's about to get ready to come up against us. But see, this is kind of like a way the Lord to send like a little, interference, so to speak, you know. But of course, the devil being the devil, he can never let a crisis go to waste, as it's been said before. So now they're speaking of different variants, right? What was it called? Something talking about the X variant, something like that, which is going right back to the playbook. Speaking of it being um, of something coming from animals, and you know, which animals don't have the same diseases as people, but they can make a gain of function, as has been said, and they have proven, and this ain't medical advice at all, right? I'm just stating the obvious. They've already stated that these people have done these type of things. They you know gave animation to things that didn't have that type of animation unto it, right? And now you're supposed to be afraid of the boogeyman, but hey, it is what it is, because this is what the time of trouble against the day of battle, and that's where we're at, and war, right? Because we're it's spiritual war, but it's also physical. This is where the spiritual world is meeting the physical world via through these storms, snowstorms, rain, tempests. You know what I mean? Even these different variants that they're trying to push, and then ultimately these agents, rather um, paid for or not, right? It says, by what way is the light parting, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth, right? Yeah, so this is the blue letter, same verse I just read, that last verse, that Job 38:24 says, is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth, right? And it's let's look up that word, parted.
Strong's H2505. Halak. Halak.
Halak, right? To divide, share. The Lord's sharing his power. He's showing his power with you, and ultimately, in sharing his power with you, he's plundering you, right? Because what did you have? You had plenty of electrical grids. You had plenty of heat. You had all sorts of things, and then that it's going to be taken away from you. Now you're left to try to survive on your own, right? A lot a portion a portion, a sign. Am I saying that? A portion, right? Slovakia. A portion. Yeah, okay, I said it right. A portion, a sign, right? And the Lord's it's a sign to a certain particular time, right? It's a sign to this time. The time of what? It just said time of trouble. Time of what? Of battle and war. It's a sign to this time. So we know that we're at the end of this time, the end of Esau's age. Divide, so, a portion, a sign, impart, to share, right? To divide up, plunder, divide up. Yeah. Distribute, right? Okay, I like that one better because we basically read those other ones. Okay, distribute and scatter, right? So basically the Lord is scattering the abundance, the treasures of his snow, right? To plunder you, right? For what? For the time of trouble, right? Battle and war, right? So it's to destroy. It's not to you know what I mean. I wonder if you're gonna be singing. You want a white Christmas, and in this time, right? You know, you wanted to you hey sometimes sometimes you get what you ask for, right? Yeah, deceitful. Yeah, slippery, deceitful. Right? Yeah, because that water that turned into ice in Atlanta, it was slippery and it was deceitful. You thought you had a solid ground, solid thing, and you're driving. Now you're sliding around, right? Yeah. So this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 20. It says, "But pray ye that your fight be not in the winter, neither on Sabbath day." Right? Because that's a. But the whole thing is, the battles every day. What it says in season and out of season, right? The battles all the time. Definitely spiritually, it's all the time. But these devils are making it physical, right? They're gonna be coming in, you know, you know. Stormtroopers mean any type of storm, whether it's winter, raining, right, windy. They're coming in all elements to to basically cause um catastrophes, right? Even like dude was saying, if it's not broke, why try to fix when people had natural gases, when people had ways to get electricity and things to to keep their houses warm. Why would you change everything and try to put it on a wind base or solar base if it's not sufficient when you can. I know they try to speak about how dangerous the nuclear power is, but you could easily use the nuclear power with all the time and all the I mean with all the technology that you say you have and how advanced you say you are. There's no reason why you can't use nuclear power and and it be perfectly fine. That's just some BS, right? Because you spend too much time being able to make guns that you can use sound waves for guns, microwave guns. You spend too much time thinking of destruction instead of thinking of life. And if you did that, it would be a lot more uh, uh, abundance for life. But of course, it's the devil. Earth is given to the hands of the wicked. He don't know nothing else. He got the world by the sword. So to him, that's the only way he's going to be able to keep it. Right? For then shall be great tribulations. Right? And that's all it is. It's going to be great tribulations because this is how he figured he could keep his world. Right? Though it's slipping. Right? Such as was not since the beginning of the world, right? You never had someone being able to shoot fire from the sky besides, the prophets. When Elijah called down fire from the sky, he did that through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? But this dude, he can bring down fire through the power of his science, the power through the sword, through his weapons, through his blessing, right? Allegedly, you had, those fires in Hawaii, the ones in California, mysteriously, in a time where California never has any fires like that, and and of course Hawaii's plenty of you know um moisturized, because it's always raining in Hawaii. What will be dry enough to just start burning? You know what I mean? It was like a because you could have believed that, a big volcano erupted and it did thing, and it burned everything because it was a volcano, but just out of nowhere it's just burning, and it burnt everything, but everything that was blue was fine. Yeah, allegedly, right? So this is the time that they have to do. You haven't had that since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Right? You're never gonna have a devil ruling over the world ever again. Right? Where his blessing is a sword, and that's all he thinks about. Leave you without. Now the grid is all messed up. People are gonna be dropping dead because they're basically freeze to death. Right? And no one's gonna be able to get to them. And it says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved for the elect's sake, right? Because that's the Lord. That's who the Lord's dealing with anyway. And so the Lord's like, you know what? The way this devil is coming, and what the things that you're doing, hey, except those days to be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Hey, it's got to happen. This is the condition of the battle, right? Yeah. So this is Ecclesiasticus chapter 43, verse 13. Ecclesiasticus chapter 43, verse 13. By his commandment, he maketh snow to fall a place, and sendeth swiftly the lightnings of his judgment. See, and all this is just really the judgment of the Most High for all those people that's gonna, check out and be into the spiritual world, right? They're gonna be standing before the power, in judgment, right? Once and that's basically what this is, judgment. And he uses, the Lord uses what's it? Let no crisis go to waste. And well, the Lord let no crisis goes to waste for judgment, right? Though through this, the treasures are open, and clouds fly forth as foul. See, and those clouds are coming over, and it's just dropping that snow, covering everything, all the way up through Canada, all the way down to Florida, right? Some things that you have never seen before. Unique. A time like no other. You right? This is by his great power, right? Which is Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Rakakadash. He maketh the clouds form, and the hailstones are broken small, right? Hey, to make snowflakes, right? At his sight, the mountains are shaken, right? These governments, right? And even actual mountains shake. They get it. Hey, the things are gonna, the Lord's presence, right? When Yahweh Shai show up, man, things are gonna get quite interesting, man. Even the earth is gonna quake. Well, you know, one thing is gonna help is the intercontinental ballistic missiles, but you just have the earth being able to, in all the elements, knowing who to praise. You know what I mean? They're gonna the things are gonna rejoice at the at His sight when Yahweh Shai show up for that judgment. But even the governments, right, at His sight, the mountains are shaken, and at His will, the south wind bloweth. See, and He can make it snow and blizzard and all sorts of things, right? But this is just part of the battle, right? Judgment. The Lord is going to bring forth judgment. A lot of people are going to perish in this time, because of the the elements. The elements, the noise of the thunders maketh the earth to tremble. So doeth the north wind and the whirlwind, as birds flying. He scattereth the snow, right? So that's what's scattering right now. That snow is scattering all over pretty much more than half of the United States. And the falling down thereof is as the lighting of grasshoppers, man. And you ever seen grasshopper just cover a field? I remember one time here when I was in high school in Phoenix, there were a bunch of grasshoppers that covered the road, and people were sliding around on the thing because people were rolling over the guts, and it was so many grass. It actually made the road slippery, so people were crashing off of that. It wasn't the black ice, but it puts you in a slippery place, right? So that ice covers over everything, and now you got that black ice, and you're in a slippery place, right? Yeah. So this is Second Esdras chapter 9 verse 1. It says, He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thus seest part, right, of the signs, see, and that's what it was saying. That's what that is when it's being scattered. Goes out. It's like it's scattering, right? Part of the signs, so it's just a sign. Pass, which I have told thee before, then shall thus understand that it is the very same time, right? What time? The time of trouble, it just said. The same time wherein the highest, right? The most high Yahweh, right? The was only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, will begin to visit the world which He made, right? And that's how you know this is what's actually happening. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproar of people in the world. And so you have that right now. You have many earthquakes in the world. You have the uproars of the people. Even right now, they're protesting over this ice stuff. In what was it, Minneapolis or something like that happened. It's lucky if I'm not. I mean, even though they've been blasting it, but I haven't really. But I think it was Minneapolis. But then they have pretty much everywhere now. They just had. I live in Phoenix, so they just had some type of incident over here in Phoenix that they started protesting over here in Phoenix, which really you could tell it's like a setup. It's It's one of them ops, some side eye ops. You know, you got to look at everything side eye. You know you know it's yeah. And so that's what it is. So with all that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Chodash. I'd like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold, Shalom. To your sisters, your Chwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence, and a Baba Ball, and Chwam Yasharallah.